For a half a century, Spider-Man has been one of the most iconic superheroes in this world. Stan Lee and Steve Ditko produced something special when introduced the teenage Peter Parker in Amazing Fantasy 15 of August of 1962, but even they couldn't have imagined the cultural impact the new hero would have. I'm Mike Spiderslayer, this is Comic Book Corner 2.0, and this is Spider-Man Through the Decades, the 1960s, Part 1. The 1960s. How can you forget? Afros, bell-bottoms, miniskirts, black lights, the Beatles. It's all there. Importantly, we had Marvel Comics. That's right. In 1962, we had Tales to Astonish issue 27. We were already on Fantastic Four issue 2, which introduced us to the Skrulls in January of 1962. And in May of 1962, we had Hulk issue 1. But the thing that was most important was The Amazing Spider-Man issue 15 that was introduced in August. And what is acclaimed as one of the finest superhero origin stories in comic history, Stan Lee and artist Stan Ditko debuted Spider-Man in the final issue of Amazing Fantasy. Wanting a teen character but finding teen sidekicks annoying, Lee made Peter Parker a hero his own right. A brilliant high school student, Peter gained his powers by accident when bitten by a radioactive spider. With the ability to stick to walls and the proportionate strength of a spider, Peter devised a set of web shooters and flashy Spider-Man costume and began a showbiz career. However, when a burglar he didn't try to stop later murdered his Uncle Ben, Peter realized he was misusing his abilities. For the first time, he understood with great power comes great responsibility. This harsh lesson led him to begin his crime-fighting crusades as Spider-Man. In 1963, Amazing Spider-Man was born. According to an editorial note written by Stan Lee on the first page of this debut issue, Marvel had little choice but to grant Spidey his own ongoing title following the public response to his origin in the Amazing Fantasy issue 15. Lee and artist Steve Ditko provided 2 standalone stories, a format that would be in favor of a single abandon after the title's second issue in favor of a single longer tale. The first story introduced readers to the Daily Bugle, publishers and anti-Spider-Man activist J. Jonah Jameson, as Spidey saved his astronaut son John from a space mission gone wrong. But the real draw of the issue was the second story, featuring Spidey's first turbulent meeting with the Fantastic Four and the debut of his earliest foe, known as the supervillain called the Chameleon. In The Amazing Spider-Man issue 2, which was released in May, Lee and Ditko focused on Peter Parker's career when they had Spider-Man develop a knack for photography. In the first issue's 2 stories, as the sinister Vulture, soon to be a major foe of Spidey, debuted, Peter Parker set out to earn the reward money offered by the Daily Bugle for snapping a photo of the winged villain. It was a feat no one had yet been able to accomplish. While his Spidey identity, Peter used a miniature camera that had once belonged to his Uncle Ben to get some great shots. He not only stopped the Vulture's crime spree, but also earned himself enough money from publisher J. Jonah Jameson to pay Aunt May's rent for the rest of the year. The issue's second tale introduced another new Spidey foe, the mad genius known as the Tinkerer, and his alien employers. J. Jonah Jameson is based off of a grumpier version of Stan Lee. The publisher of the Daily Bugle and Now magazine, J. Jonah Jameson, loved Peter Parker's photos of the much-hated Spider-Man. In June of the same year, we get Strange Tales Annual. Spider-Man's first encounter with the Fantastic Four. In the pages of The Amazing Spider-Man issue 1 saw Spidey locked in combat with the team, who assumed he was breaking into their hideout for nefarious purposes. The theme of conflict continued when Spidey first teamed up with the Human Torch in the 18-page lead to the massive annual. Lee and artist Jack Kirby used the machinations of a thief known as the Fox as an excuse to pit the two teen heroes against each other. The idea of superheroes battling proved so popular it became a staple in the first act of most Marvel team-ups. And while Spidey and the Torch ended up as lifelong pals, frequent misunderstandings would cause them to battle each other regularly. In The Amazing Spider-Man issue 3, which was released in July of 1963, one of Spider-Man's most recognizable foes burst out into the scene in this epic tale of origin of Dr. Octopus. Lee and Ditko's story began with Spidey trying out a new tool in his crime-fighting arsenal, a light attached to his belt that projected a spider signal intended to fighting criminals. While Spidey perfected his technology, scientist Otto Octavius suffered an accident with his. Octavius was caught in a nuclear explosion that grafted his electronic arms to his body. With an industrial-sized chip on his shoulder and greater control over his mechanical limbs, the so-called Dr. Octopus went on a rampage that only Spider-Man could halt. This issue also featured guest appearance by the Human Torch, whose cameos usually boosted the Amazing Spider-Man sales. In September of 1963, we had The Amazing Spider-Man issue 4 titled Enter Sandman. If a hero is only good as his rogues gallery, then Spider-Man was surely getting better with every issue. In this installment, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko introduced Sandman, a supervillain who could turn his entire body into sand with a single thought, and control the destiny and shape of that sand. Formerly a common thug called Flint Marko, who was trapped in a nuclear explosion that gave him amazing abilities. Sandman continued Lee's trend of using the real-world fear of nuclear fallout to help add a contemporary element to an otherwise standard origin tale. Besides introducing this major player, the issue also shed some light on the difficulties Spidey faced in being a superhero, like having to mend a ripped costume. Also in September, we wound up getting the Fantastic Four Annual #1. Spider-Man's first meeting with the Fantastic Four was revisited in a 6-page backup story written by Lee with pencils by Jack Kirby. After receiving countless requests from the readers, Lee decided to expand upon the original 2-page clash of superheroics first show in March's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 1 by recounting the time when Spidey sneaked into the Fantastic Four's hideout to apply for team membership. Sandwiched between a lead story, a few backup features, and a pin-up of drawings, this tale pitted Spidey against the FF, who mistook him for an attacker. The cash-starved Spider-Man eventually convinced the team that he simply wanted to join their ranks, but changed tune after learning that the FF didn't collect salaries. In The Amazing Spider-Man issue 5, we were introduced to the Fantastic Four's arch-enemy, Dr. Doom, pitted his genius against Spider-Man for the first time when, thanks to Lee and Ditko, he tried to make the wall crawler his partner. J.J. Jameson and the Daily Bugle had been trying to brand Spidey a villain since the web-slinger debuted, and Doom, believing this smear, thought it would be child's play to convince Spider-Man to join his nefarious cause. However, when Spidey rejected his offer for a team-up, Doom tried to destroy the hero, in the process accidentally attacking Peter's classmates and bully Flash Thompson, who was impersonating Spider-Man. In the end, Spidey forced Doom to retreat while Flash was treated to a quick appearance by the Fantastic Four. In November of 1963, we had issue 6 of The Amazing Spider-Man. With issue 5, Spider-Man had moved to a monthly schedule, but writer Lee and artist Ditko took the new deadlines into their stride. The Amazing Spider-Man 6th issue introduced the Lizard, a tragic character and the later apparent influence for DC Batman's villain, the Man-Bat. Dr. Curtis Connors was a veteran and a scientist living with the wartime injury of a lost right arm. Connors used a serum concocted from the lizard's extracts to regrow his limb, but his body continued to mutate until he became a hideous reptilian beast who called himself the Lizard and was bent on the complete destruction of the human race. However, with Spider-Man's help, the Lizard was able to regain his humanity and return to the side of his wife and child. In December of 1963, we had The Amazing Spider-Man issue 7. We had the Vultures return. Just as Peter Parker seemed to be getting the hang of his fantastic life, Lee and Ditko decided to throw another wrench into the works. The Vulture became Spider-Man's first returning foe when he aged villain escaped prison with the help of a flying device he secretly developed in the facility's machine shop. Spidey took to the rooftops to confront the Vulture. However, the villain proved that an old bird can indeed learn new tricks. His costume had been made impervious to Spidey's makeshift inverter, the tool he used to defeat the Vulture in the last encounter. Spider-Man took down the villain with sheer ingenuity and web shooting skill, pinned the Vulture's wings to the end the feathered felon's crime wave. Next up, webheads, in part 2 of Through the Decades, we're going to be continuing to talk about the 1960s, where we introduce Electro, the return of Dr. Octopus, Mysterio, the Green Goblin, and a whole bunch more. So, until next time, this is Mike Spiderslayer, and you've been watching Comic Book Corner 2.0. Later, webheads.